President Minho Kong sat in his office reviewing trade documents when the alarm started. The sound was different from the usual drills. This was real. His assistant burst through the door, her face pale with fear. Something terrible was happening above Earth. The screens on his wall came alive with images of destruction. Earth's orbital stations were burning. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like terrible fireworks. Ships that humanity had built over decades were breaking apart, and people were dying. Minho watched in horror as the Luna colony, home to 50,000 people, took a direct hit. Half the dome shattered, exposing the colony to the void of space. Within minutes, his military advisors filled the room. General Hunsu Park pointed at the tactical displays. Unknown ships had appeared without warning. They came through jump points that should have been monitored. They ignored all attempts at communication. They simply started shooting. "Who are they?" Minho asked, though his stomach already knew this was no accident. "The Vrenthi Dominion," Hunsu said. His jaw was tight with anger. They're a predator species. Strong, aggressive, and they've been expanding their territory for years. Intelligence says they view humans as weak. Minho felt cold. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 15 years ago. They were still learning the rules of this vast community of alien species. Earth had been promised protection. The Council was supposed to prevent exactly this kind of attack. "Get me the Galactic Council," Minho ordered. Now, while his team worked to establish the connection, Minho watched the death toll climb. 3,000 dead. 5,000. 8,000. The numbers kept rising. These weren't just statistics. These were people with families, dreams, and lives that had just been erased. The holographic display finally activated. The Galactic Council chamber appeared before him, a massive space filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. At the center sat High Counselor Vexman, a tall creature with silver skin and too many eyes. The being looked at Minho with what might have been boredom. President Kong Vexman said slowly, "We were not expecting a call. Earth is under attack," Minho said, trying to keep his voice steady. "The Vrenthi Dominion is bombing our orbital stations and colonies. Thousands are dead. We need immediate council intervention." It's a chamber filled with sounds. Some species chittered. Others made low rumbling noises. But no one moved to help. Minho's hands formed fists at his sides. A large reptilian creature stood up. Minho recognized him as Krelvon, the Vrenthi representative. The alien's mouth opened in what looked like a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The Vrenthi Dominion is simply claiming resources that humanity has failed to properly utilize," Krelvon said. "This is well within our rights under territorial expansion protocols." "You're killing civilians?" Minho shouted, his composure breaking. "Fortunate," Krelvon replied, sitting back down. "But such is the nature of galactic politics. The strong survive. The weak adapt or perish." Minho looked at the other council members, hoping to see outrage or support. Instead, he saw indifference. Some species looked away. Others seemed almost satisfied. Ambassador Ji-Wan Lee, Earth's representative who was already at the council station, stood up. "I formally request emergency intervention," Ji-Wan said. Her voice was shaking. "Under Article 7 of the Council Charter, any member species under unprovoked attack has the right to council military assistance." High Counselor Vexman seemed to consider this for a long moment. Too long. While they talked, people were dying. Finally, the silver alien spoke. "The Council recognizes Earth's request. We will convene a committee to study the situation. A vote will be held within 10 standard days to determine the appropriate response." 10 days? Minho couldn't believe what he was hearing. "We need help now." "The Council has procedures," Vexman replied coldly. "We cannot simply rush to action every time a minor species faces difficulties. That would set a dangerous precedent." Before Minho could respond, alarms blared again. The screens showed a new wave of Vrenthi ships approaching Earth. This time, they were targeting the planet itself. The city of New Seoul, where Ambassador Juan's family lived, appeared on the display. A massive energy beam shot down from orbit. Gi-Wan's scream echoed through the council chamber. The holographic feed showed her collapsing to her knees, her hands covering her face. The other ambassadors watched but did nothing. Some even looked annoyed at the emotional display. High Counselor Vexman called for order. The council voted quickly. 40 species voted to monitor the situation. Only 8 voted for immediate intervention. The motion failed. Earth would receive no help. Minho watched. Guan weeping on the floor of the council chamber, while alien diplomats stepped around her. He saw Krelvin laughing with another representative. He looked at the death toll on his screens. 15,000 now. 20,000. The numbers kept climbing. Something inside Minho changed in that moment. He had spent his entire presidency trying to make humanity fit into the galactic community. He had followed their rules, adopted their customs, and trusted in their systems. He had believed in diplomacy and peaceful cooperation. That belief died as he watched the council turn its back on Earth. Ambassador Li Minho said quietly into the communication system. Guan looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Come home. We're done here. Counselor Vexman looked mildly surprised. President Kang, surely you don't mean to withdraw from the council over this minor incident? Minor incident? Minho's voice was ice. You just let 20,000 humans die while you debated procedures? You voted to do nothing while my people burned. So yes, we're done with your council. We're done with your rules. We're done asking for permission. He cut the transmission before Vexman could respond. The hologram vanished, leaving Minho alone with his military advisors. General Hunsu stepped forward. Sir, we have defensive positions ready. We can hold them off until we evacuate the critical areas. Minho shook his head. No more defense. Call in Dr. Yoonji Choi from the Weapons Division. Get Commander Dae-Yoon Nam from Special Operations. And wake up every pilot, soldier, and scientist we have. Sir. Hunsu looked confused. Minho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see contrails in the sky as fighters scrambled to intercept friendly bombers. Somewhere up there, people were fighting and dying to protect their home. The Galactic Council thinks humans are weak, Minho said. The Vrenthi think we're prey. They're all about to learn something about Earth. Something important. He turned to face his general, and Hunsu took a step back from the look in the president's eyes. They're about to learn that humans are persistence hunters. And we never forget. And we never forgive an attack on our home. General Hyunsu smiled for the first time since the attack began. What are your orders, sir? Get me everything we have, Minho said. Every weapon we've been hiding from the council. Every technology they told us not to develop. Every dirty trick humanity ever learned in 10,000 years of warfare. We tried their way. Now we do this the human way. The general saluted and left to make it happen. Minho looked back out the window at the burning sky. The Vrenthi wanted a war. The council wanted to watch. Fine. Humanity would give them both something they would never forget. The predators were about to meet. Earth's apex predator deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. In a facility that officially didn't exist, President Min Ho Kong gathered his war council. The room was cold and sterile, lit by screens showing the ongoing devastation above. The death toll had reached 30,000. The Vrenthi continued their assault, confident that Earth could do nothing but die slowly. General Hunsu Park stood at the head of the table with his usual battle plans ready. Defensive positions. Evacuation routes. Acceptable losses. The kind of warfare that the Galactic Council approved of? Civilized warfare. Limited warfare. The kind where Earth would eventually surrender and beg for mercy. Minho waved it all away. No, we're not playing their game anymore. A woman in a white lab coat entered the room. Dr. Yoonji Choi looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Behind her came Commander Dae-Yoon Nam, head of Earth Special Operations. Both of them had been summoned from secret projects that the Council knew nothing about. Tell me about the black sites, Minho said. Tell me about everything we've been hiding. Yoonji pulled up holographic displays that made several military officers gasp. Weapons, technologies, things that humanity had been explicitly ordered not to develop. The Galactic Council had long lists of prohibited research. They said these things were too dangerous, too inhumane, too effective. "We have quantum disruption bombs," Yonji began. "They tear apart the molecular bonds of any ship within range. The Council banned them 3,000 years ago after the Kelth Wars. We've built 200. She continued through the inventory. AI-guided missiles that could hunt targets across multiple star systems. Biological agents designed specifically for oxygen-breathing species like the Vrinthi. Stealth technology that made human ships completely invisible to standard sensors. Nanoweapons that could disassemble enemy armor at the atomic level. "Why do we have all this?" asked one of the admirals. "If the Council banned it, how did we even know how to build it?" Commander Dayan smiled grimly. "Because we're humans. We're very good at learning from history, especially military history. When we joined the Council, we accessed their archives. Every war they ever fought. Every weapon they ever banned. We studied it all. Then we improved it." Minho listened as they explained humanity's secret edge. While other species had evolved as either prey or limited predators, humans were different. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They didn't have claws or venom or armor. They had endurance, strategy, the ability to chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. More importantly, they had something most alien species had lost millions of years ago: the willingness to wage total war. "Most Council species don't understand warfare the way we do," Dayan explained. "They fight for territory or resources, limited objectives. When they lose enough, they surrender. It's logical, efficient." He paused. "Humans don't work that way. When you attack our home, when you kill our families, logic goes away. We fight until we win or until we're dead. There's no middle ground." Minho looked at the displays showing Vrenthi ships burning Earth cities. He thought about Ambassador Juan, who had lost her entire family. He thought about the 30,000 dead and climbing. Then he thought about what humanity was about to unleash. "Show me the plan," he said. Dayan brought up a tactical display. Operation Reckoning. Phase 1. Intelligence Gathering. "We have stealth ships positioned throughout Vrinthi space. They've been there for months, watching, waiting. The Vrenthi don't know we can hide ships from their sensors." Phase 2. Infiltration. "Special operations teams will board Vrenthi command ships and extract their entire military database. Fleet positions, command codes, weapon specifications.
Everything."
Phase 3. Execution. "We plant quantum bombs throughout their fleet. Then we trigger them all at once. 60% casualties in the first minute. The survivors will try to run. Our AI missiles will hunt them down. Not a single ship that attacked Earth will survive." The room was silent. Several officers looked uncomfortable. This wasn't the kind of war the Council approved of. This was extinctionally retaliation. "Sir," said one admiral carefully. "This will kill tens of thousands of Vrenthi. Maybe hundreds of thousands. The Council will call it genocide." Minho's voice was cold. "The Council watched 30,000 humans die and voted to do nothing. I don't care what they call it. The Vrenthi attacked us. Now they pay the price." Within hours, Operation Reckoning began. Human stealth ships moved through space like ghosts. The Vrenthi never saw them coming. Captain Sora Bay led her special operations team onto a Vrenthi command ship. The aliens were celebrating their victory over weak humanity when armed humans materialized out of nowhere. The fight was brutal and short. Sora's team moved with precision that the Vrenthi couldn't match. Humans trained for this. Humans had been fighting each other in creative ways for thousands of years before they even reached space. The Vrenthi were strong and had sharp teeth, but they had never faced an enemy that understood violence at humanity's level. Sora downloaded everything from the Vrenthi's computers, while her team planted quantum bombs in the ship's reactor. Then they disappeared back into stealth, leaving the Vrenthi confused and alarmed. Across the Vrenthi fleet, 30 other teams did the same thing. By the time the Vrenthi realized something was wrong, it was too late. The bombs were in place. The data was stolen. The trap was set. President Minho Kong sat in the command center watching the tactical displays. Every Renthi ship that had attacked Earth was marked in red. 347 vessels. Thousands of Renthi soldiers. All of them about to die. Before he gave the order, he recorded a message. He broadcast it across the entire Galactic Council network, making sure every species would see it. This is President Minho Kong of Earth. The Renthi Dominion attacked our world without provocation. They killed 30,000 civilians. They destroyed our homes, our stations, our colonies. We asked the Galactic Council for help. They voted to do nothing. He paused, his face hard. So Earth has decided to handle this ourselves. The Renthi thought humans were weak. They thought we were prey. They were wrong. Minho looked directly into the camera. To the Renthi Dominion, you attacked our home. You killed our children. Now you will learn why Earth's predators are the most dangerous in the galaxy. Now you will learn what happens when you wake up humanity. He closed the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Fire. The quantum bombs detonated simultaneously across the Renthi fleet. Space itself seemed to tear apart as molecular bonds broke down. Ships exploded from the inside out, their armor useless against weapons that attacked at the atomic level. 208 Renthi vessels died in the first 10 seconds. The surviving ships tried to run. Captains who had been laughing about weak humans suddenly screamed orders to retreat. They jumped too faster than light speed, trying to escape to their home systems. The AI missiles followed them. These weren't normal weapons. These were hunters that could track a target across light years. They didn't need human guidance. They didn't get tired. They didn't stop until their target was dead. One by one, the fleeing Renthi ships died. Some made it all the way back to their home territory before the missiles caught them. Some tried to hide in asteroid fields or gas giants. It didn't matter. The missiles found them. The missiles always found them in the command center. Officers watched in silence as the red markers on the tactical display winked out. 347 became 300. Then 200. Then 100. Sir, said an officer quietly, we're getting communications from Renthi ships. They're begging for mercy. They're trying to surrender. Minho thought about the 30,000 dead humans who had begged for mercy when the bombs fell. He thought about children killed in their schools. He thought about the council doing nothing. No mercy, he said. Not one ship survives. They wanted to show us how war works in the galaxy. Now they know how war works on Earth. The last Renthi ship died 6 hours after the attack began. Not a single vessel that had participated in the assault on Earth survived. The Renthi Dominion lost an entire fleet, tens of thousands of soldiers, and their reputation as predators. As the final explosion faded on the screens, Minho sent another message. This one was directed at the Galactic Council. Earth requests an emergency council session. Attendance is mandatory. We need to discuss how this organization works, because clearly there have been some misunderstandings about who the apex predators are in this galaxy. He cut the transmission and stood up. Around him, his officers looked shocked at what they had witnessed. Humanity had just announced itself as a major power in the most violent way possible. General Hunso approached him. Sir, the council will be furious. They'll call this excessive. They'll want punishment. Minho thought about Ambassador Jiwon, still traveling back to Earth, mourning her family. He thought about the 30,000 graves they would have to dig. Let them be furious, he said. Let them see what happens when they fail to protect their members. The Renthi learned their lesson. Now it's the Council's turn. The Galactic Council station orbited the neutral world of Karathon like a massive jewel in space. For 10,000 years, it had been a place of peaceful discussion and diplomatic solutions. Today, it felt like a courthouse where humanity was about to be judged. President Minho Kong arrived with an escort of 30 warships. This was unprecedented. Council protocols said that visitors came unarmed, in ships of peace. Minho had other ideas. His ships took up positions around the station, their weapons powered but not aimed. A reminder that Earth could defend itself now. Ambassador Jiwon Lee met him at the docking bay. Her eyes were still red from crying, but she stood straight and proud. Together, They walked through corridors filled with alien diplomats who whispered and pointed. Some looked afraid. Others looked angry. Good, Minho thought. Let them feel what Earth felt. The council chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives. They wanted to see what would happen to the humans who had dared to wage real war. High Counselor Vexman sat at the center, his silver skin gleaming under the lights. His expression was cold. President Kang Vexman began. You have been summoned to answer for serious crimes. The destruction of the Vrenthi fleet. The use of prohibited weapons. The violation of council law. How do you plead? Minho stood calmly. Before I answer, I have evidence to present to the council. Vexman looked annoyed. This is not a debate. This is a tribunal. And let the tribunal see all the evidence, Minho replied. He signaled to Guan, who activated holographic displays throughout the chamber. The first display showed communications between council members. Mess. Ages sent weeks before the Vrenthi attack. Messages discussing Earth and its growing influence. Messages about how humanity needed to be put in their place before they became problematic. The chamber erupted in sound. Representatives shouted denials or accusations. Vexman called for order, but the damage was done. The council had known. They had known and done nothing. The council was aware that the Vrenthi were planning to attack Earth, Minho said loudly. Not only did you fail to warn us, some of you actively encouraged it. You wanted to see humanity humbled. You wanted to teach us that we're just a minor species who should be grateful for whatever scraps you give us. A reptilian counselor stood up, its scales flushing dark with anger. This is slander. We would never sanction an attack on a member species. Minho smiled without humor. Really? Then explain these financial records. New displays appeared, showing money transfers between 12 council species and the Vrenthi Dominion. Weapon shipments. Intelligence briefs about Earth's defenses. Technology transfers. You armed them, Minho continued. You gave them our defense codes. You told them exactly where to strike for maximum damage. The Vrenthi didn't attack on their own. This was a conspiracy. You tried to destroy us. The chamber descended into chaos. Species accused each other. Some tried to leave. Vexamon's voice boomed for silence, but it took several minutes before order returned. Even if this were true, Vexamon said carefully, it does not justify your excessive response. You destroyed an entire fleet. You used banned weapons. You committed genocide. Minho's expression hardened. Genocide. We destroyed military targets that attacked us. The Vrenthi fleet killed 30,000 civilians. We killed soldiers who signed up for war. That's not genocide. That's justice. Krelvan, the Vrenthi representative, stood with visible effort. His people had lost badly, and he looked defeated. The Vrenthi Dominion protests this massacre. We demand reparations. We demand you demand nothing, Minho interrupted. His voice cut through the chamber like a knife. You attacked Earth. You lost. Be grateful we stopped at your fleet and didn't glass your homeworld. Because we could have. We still can. The threat hung in the air. Several species shifted uncomfortably. They were beginning to understand that humanity wasn't the weak prey species they had assumed. Let me show you something else, Minho said. Dr. Yoonji Choi's work appeared on the displays. Battle simulations. Plans for defeating every species on the council. Detailed analysis of their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses. In the past year, Earth has studied every species in this council. We know how to beat you. All of you. The Tal'Vari, with your energy shields. We have weapons that bypass them. The Kelthorn, with your swarm tactics. We have an eye that can outthink you. The Mortian, with your stealth. We can see you. Let that sink in, watching faces change as species realized what he was saying. Earth didn't want this. We came to the council seeking cooperation and friendship. We followed your rules. We trusted your protection. And when we needed you most, you failed us. Worse, you conspired against us. Minho walked closer to the center of the chamber. Guards tensed but didn't move. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say next. So here are Earth's demands. The 12 species involved in the conspiracy will pay reparations. Every credit you gave the Vrenthi, you will give to us to rebuild. The Vrenthi Dominion will surrender unconditionally. You will disarm. You will allow human observers in your government. You will spend the next 50 years learning what it means to be peaceful. Vexman started to object, but Minho kept talking. Earth will have a permanent seat on the council with veto power. The Prohibited Weapons Treaty will be rewritten with human input. Because clearly, the current version just gives advantage to older species while keeping newer ones weak. And finally, any future attack on any member species will be treated as an attack on all. No more voting to monitor the situation, no more bureaucratic delays while people die. The chamber exploded with objections. Multiple species shouted that these demands were impossible. That Earth was a young species with no right to dictate terms. That this was blackmail. Call it what you want, Minho said. These are our terms. And if we refuse? Vexman asked coldly. Minho pulled up one final display. It showed star maps with dozens of markers scattered across the galaxy. Hidden locations far from any council space. For the past 5 years, Earth has been sending out colony ships. Secret colonies in systems you don't know about. Hidden bases with full manufacturing capabilities. If Earth falls, these bases will continue to operate. They'll build ships. They'll build weapons. And they'll wage war against every species that let Earth die. He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes with various representatives. You can work with us. We'll be good partners. We'll share our technology, our resources, our innovations, or you can make us your enemies. And I promise you, humanity as your eternal enemy is something you don't want. We're very good at holding grudges. We have documented feuds that lasted thousands of years. We're patient. We're creative. And we never, ever forget. The silence that followed was heavy. Council members looked at each other, uncertain. This wasn't how things were supposed to work. Young species were supposed to be grateful and submissive. They weren't supposed to show up with fleets and make demands. But Earth had changed the rules. Earth had proven that humans could fight and win. More importantly, Earth had exposed the Council's corruption and weakness. An unexpected voice spoke up. Councillor Thayer of the Kelthorn, a herbivorous species that usually stayed quiet, rose from her seat. The Kelthorn support Earth's proposals, she said. For too long, this council has been dominated by predator species who use strength to maintain control. Perhaps it's time for change. Perhaps we need a species that understands both mercy and strength. Other voices joined in. Species that had been bullied or ignored for centuries saw opportunity in Earth's proposals. A vote was called. It wasn't unanimous, but it didn't need to be. The reforms passed. Vexman looked like he had aged 100 years. His power was broken. The old order was changing. The session is adjourned, he said bitterly. We will reconvene to discuss implementation of these changes. As the chamber emptied, Krelvin approached Minho and Juan. The Vrenthi representative looked humiliated and defeated. My species underestimated yours, he said quietly. We thought you were prey. We were wrong. Yes, you were, Minho replied. The question now is whether you'll learn from this or force us to teach you again. Krelvin left without responding. Juan watched him go, her expression unreadable. Do you think they'll accept the terms? She asked. They don't have a choice, Minho said. We proved we can hurt them. Now we need to prove we can help them. That's the harder part. They walked back to Earth's ship, through corridors that now felt different. Where before aliens had looked at humans with contempt or pity, now there was fear and respect. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it was a start. On the journey back to Earth, Minho sat alone in his quarters, thinking about everything that had happened. 30,000 dead. An entire fleet destroyed. The Galactic Council bent to Earth's will. It was a victory, but it felt hollow. His communicator chimed. It was General Hunsu with a report on the Vrenthi homeworld. They had sent observers as part of the surrender terms. What they found was sobering. The Vrenthi people were terrified. They had lost their entire military fleet. They thought Earth was coming to destroy them completely. Children hid in shelters. Cities prepared for bombardment. They expected no mercy because they had shown none. Minho made a decision then. Earth would send aid, not armies. Food, not bombs. Teachers, not soldiers. The Vrenthi had learned that humanity could destroy. Now they would learn that humanity could also build. It was a gamble. Many on Earth wanted revenge. But Minho believed that creating allies from enemies was worth more than creating corpses. The galaxy was watching. Earth's next moves would define humanity's place in it for generations to come. He hoped he was making the right choice. 6 months after the attack, Earth looked different. Massive orbital defense platforms ringed the planet like a crown of thorns. Weapons that could vaporize approaching fleets pointed outward into space. No one would catch humanity unprepared again. Dr. Yoonji Choi barely slept anymore. Her labs worked constantly, developing new technologies that pushed the limits of physics. But even as Earth built weapons, President Minho Kong had other plans. He understood that guns alone wouldn't secure humanity's future. Earth needed allies, not just fear. The Vrenthi homeworld was surrounded by human ships. Their people waited for destruction. Instead, transport vessels arrived carrying food, medicine, and construction materials. The Vrenthi leadership, now headed by Krenthor after their previous government fell, didn't understand. Why do you help us? Krenthar asked during a tense meeting with human diplomats. We killed your people. We would have destroyed you if we could. The lead diplomat, a calm woman named Minseo Han, smiled gently. Because holding grudges is easy. Building something better is hard. Earth chooses the hard path, and everyone agreed with this approach. Captain Sora Bay, promoted to admiral after her actions during the counterattack, stood in President Kong's office and argued loudly. They murdered 30,000 people, she said, her voice shaking with anger. My entire squadron died protecting Earth, and now we're sending them aid? We're helping them rebuild. Minho stood up from his desk. Come with me. I want to show you something. He took a transport to one of Earth's military hospitals. In a special ward, Vrenthi children were being treated by human doctors. These were orphans, their parents killed when Earth destroyed the attacking fleet. Some were injured. All were terrified. A young Vrenthi child, barely 5 years old by Earth standards, cowered in the corner of her room. She had burns across her scales from when her ship exploded. A human nurse, a woman named Kyung-mi, approached slowly with medicine. It's okay, Kyung-mi said softly. No one will hurt you here. I promise. The child looked at her with large, frightened eyes. Slowly, she accepted the medicine. Kyung-mi smiled and gently bandaged the burns. The child made a sound that might have been Vrenthi for thank you. Sora watched this scene, her expression conflicted. Minho spoke quietly beside her. This is the price, he said. Every action has consequences. We destroyed their fleet. That was necessary. But the destruction created these children. Orphans who did nothing wrong except being born Vrenthi. We can be monsters and kill them too, or we can be better than our pain. Sora was silent for a long moment. I still hate them for what they did. So do I, Minho admitted. But hate is easy. Being better is hard. That's why it matters. Sora left without another word, but she didn't argue again. Weeks later, she quietly donated credits to the hospital. Small steps, Minho thought. Everyone heals in their own way. Meanwhile, Ambassador Jiwan Lee worked tirelessly at the Galactic Council. The reforms had passed, but implementation was difficult. Many older species resented Earth's sudden influence. They followed the new rules because they feared human weapons, not because they agreed with human values. Giwan needed to change that. With help from her chief aide, Counselor Mira Sung, she identified species that might become genuine allies. The Kelthon were obvious choices. As herbivores, they had always been vulnerable to predator species. Earth's protection meant they could finally feel safe. But there were others. The Tyval, a species of artists who valued creativity over warfare. The Paresh merchants who cared more about trade than territory. The The Wexan scientists who shared humanity's curiosity about the universe. 12 species have signed the Treaty of Terra, Myra reported during a meeting. 20 more are considering it. If this continues, Earth will have more allies than the old Council powers. Guan studied the names. These weren't the strongest or richest species, but they were numerous, and they were tired of being bullied. Together, they could reshape the galaxy. What Jiwan didn't know was that Commander Daeyun, Nam's intelligence division, had uncovered something darker. His agents discovered that the conspiracy against Earth went deeper than anyone suspected. The attack wasn't really about teaching humanity a lesson. It was about resources. Earth's solar system contained rare elements that were incredibly valuable. Certain elements needed for faster-than-light drives. Materials for quantum computers. Substances that could extend lifespans. A dozen council species wanted exclusive access to these resources. The plan had been simple. Let the Vrenthi attack Earth. If humanity survived but was weakened, force them into trade agreements that heavily favored council species. If humanity was destroyed, carve up the solar system among the conspirators. Daeon brought this evidence to President Kong. They sat in the secure bunker, looking at financial records and secret communications. They tried to genocide us for mining rights, Daeyun said bitterly. 30,000 people dead because they wanted cheaper fuel. Minho felt old rage returning. But then he thought about the Vrenthi children in the hospital. About Admiral Sora learning mercy. About building something better instead of just destroying enemies. We could expose this, Daeyun continued. The entire galaxy would turn against these species. We could demand reparations that would bankrupt them, Minho said slowly. We'd do something smarter. He announced that Earth would share its resources. Any species that signed the Treaty of Terra would get fair access to everything humanity controlled. No monopolies. No exploitation. Just honest trade and mutual benefit. The reaction was immediate. 30 species signed in the first week. By the end of the month, 45. These were species that had been excluded from resource deals by the powerful. Now Earth offered them a better option. High Counselor Vexman realized what was happening and called an emergency meeting with Minho. They met in a private chamber. Just the two of them. You're destroying the council, Vexman said. These treaties of yours are creating a parallel power structure. Soon you won't need us at all. Minho looked at the silver-skinned alien. He saw fear there and something else. Regret, maybe. You tried to teach us our place, Minho said. We learned our place is at the table, not beneath it. We're not destroying the council. We're showing you what it could have been all along. A place where all species are protected and valued, not just the strong ones. Vexman stood to leave, then paused. You realize that this might make you more enemies? The powerful don't like change. Powerful should have thought about that before they attacked Earth, Minho replied. That night, Minho couldn't sleep. He stood in his office, looking at casualty reports that he reviewed every night. 30,000 names. People who died because they trusted the council to protect them. His assistant, Ijin Park, found him there at 3 in the morning. She was one of the few people who saw past his presidential mask to the tired man underneath. Was it worth it? Minho asked her. Everything we did, everything we became. Was it worth the cost? Hyjin was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Ask me in 50 years when we see what kind of galaxy we built. It was an honest answer, better than false comfort. Minho appreciated that. Across the galaxy, things were shifting. Earth had gone from victim to victor in just months. They had proven they could fight. They had proven they could win. Now they were proving something harder. They could lead. The Treaty of Terra wasn't just a defensive alliance. It included provisions for mutual aid, scientific cooperation, cultural exchange, and economic development. Species that had been isolated for centuries suddenly had partners. Technologies that had been hoarded by the powerful were being shared. Admiral Sora's fleets protected weaker species from pirates and raiders. Dr. Yunji's discoveries were published freely instead of kept secret. Ambassador Giwan's diplomatic corps helped resolve disputes between members without violence. Slowly, carefully, Earth was building the kind of galactic community it had hoped the Council would be. And species were noticing, on the Vrenthi homeworld. Krenthar watched human engineers teaching his people new agricultural techniques that would end their food shortages. He watched human doctors treating diseases that Vrenthi medicine couldn't cure. He watched human teachers showing Vrenthi children that strength came in many forms. He had attacked Earth expecting easy prey. Instead, he found something his species had never encountered, an enemy that offered friendship after victory. It was confusing and humbling, and somehow hopeful. "Why do you do this?" he asked Menseo Han again. Really, not the political answer. The truth, Menseo thought carefully. Because we remember what it's like to be afraid. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other before we reached space. We know what hatred does. We've seen whole cities destroyed over small differences. We learned, eventually, that survival means cooperation. That former enemies can become friends if you give them a chance. She gestured at the construction around them, humans and Vrenthi working side by side. "Your people tried to kill us, but you're not our enemies anymore. You're just another species trying to survive in a difficult universe. We can help with that. That's what makes us human." Krenthar didn't fully understand, but he was beginning to. Earth offered something the galaxy hadn't seen in a long time. Hope that things could be different. 1 year after the attack, the Galactic Council faced its biggest crisis in 10,000 years. The institution that had maintained order across hundreds of star systems was breaking apart. The Old Guard, led by High Counselor Vexman and a dozen powerful species, clung desperately to traditional ways. They insisted that the old hierarchy was necessary, that the strong should lead and the weak should follow. That Earth's reforms threatened everything they had built, the Reform Bloc. Championed by Ambassador Ji-Wan Lee and her growing coalition, pushed for fundamental changes: democratic representation, transparent voting, equal protection for all members. They believed the galaxy deserved better than the system that had allowed Earth's attack to happen. Then there were the isolationists, species so terrified of another conflict that they wanted to withdraw from galactic politics entirely. Better to be alone than caught in the crossfire of another war. President Minho Kong felt the weight of these divisions. Earth had sparked this crisis by refusing to accept its assigned place. Now the entire galactic order was unraveling. Some days he wondered if they had done the right thing. General Hyun-Soo Park represented the hardliners on Earth. They wanted to press their advantage. Establish a human-led order, while fear of Earth's military still held. Make the galaxy bend to Huma. Nidhi's will. "We have the power now," Hyun-Soo argued during a cabinet meeting. "Other species respect strength. We should use it to secure Earth's position permanently." Across the table, philosopher Taijin Yun shook his head. That's exactly how the old council thought. Use power to dominate others. If we do the same, we become what we fought against. The debate raged for hours. Minho listened to all sides, understanding both arguments. Power was seductive. It would be easy to build an empire, but Earth hadn't fought for the right to become oppressors themselves. The decision was made for him. When crisis struck the Mortian Collective, intelligence revealed that their government had been part of the conspiracy against Earth. When this became public, the Mortian people revolted. Their entire civilization descended into civil war within days. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions but couldn't agree on action. Should they intervene? Support the government? Back the rebels? Every proposal was blocked by some faction or another. While they debated, people died. Minho didn't wait for council approval. He called Commander Dayon and Admiral Sora to his office. "Humanitarian mission," he ordered. "Food, medicine, temporary shelters. Protect refugee convoys from both sides. Don't take sides in their civil war, but make sure innocents don't suffer for their leaders' mistakes." Within 24 hours, human ships arrived in Mortian space. They broadcast simple messages. "We are here to help. We will not fight unless fired upon. Any refugee seeking safety will be protected." First, both sides in the civil war were suspicious. Some tried to use human-aid ships as shields. Some tried to attack them to create incidents. But Admiral Sora's orders were clear. Defend refugees, avoid combat when possible, but never, ever show weakness. When a warlord faction tried to hijack a human supply convoy, they learned why Earth's military was feared. The engagement lasted for minutes. The warlords' ships were disabled, their crews arrested, and the supplies continued to the refugee camps. After that, no one else tried. Captain Wanshik Kim commanded one of the refugee ships. He watched Martian families boarding, carrying everything they owned in small bags. Children crying, parents exhausted, all of them terrified. "Why are you helping us?" a Martian mother asked him. "Your leaders, they betrayed you. They helped plan the attack on Earth." Wanshik knelt down to her level. "Your leaders did that, not you. You're just trying to keep your kids safe." That's something any human understands. Over 3 months, Earth evacuated 2 million Martian refugees to safe zones. They built temporary cities with power, water, and schools. They provided medical care and trauma counseling. They asked nothing in return. The galaxy watched. This was different from anything they had seen before. The powerful usually exploited crises for advantage. Earth just helped. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoonji Choi made a breakthrough that changed everything. Her team developed technology that could detect and neutralize quantum weapons. The same weapons Earth had used against the Vrenthi fleet. It was a shield against humanity's most devastating weapon. Her staff expected her to classify this research, keep it secret, maintain Earth's military edge. Instead, Yanji did something that shocked everyone. She presented her findings to the entire Galactic Council freely. "We proved we can destroy you," she told the assembled species. "Now we'll prove we can protect you." This technology is available to all council members who sign the new Defense Pact. No species should have to fear quantum weapons again, including from Earth.
Wow.
The gesture was revolutionary. Species that had been terrified of human weapons suddenly felt safer. Earth was volunteering to give up its advantage. Why would anyone do that unless they genuinely wanted peace? High Counselor Vexman called for a final vote on the new council charter. It would either pass and create the reformed council that Earth wanted, or fail and likely end the institution entirely. President Min Ho Kong traveled to the council station for the vote. He brought no warships this time, just a small diplomatic vessel. This needed to be about ideas, not intimidation. The chamber was packed. Every species sent representatives. The tension was overwhelming. Vexman called the session to order and gave Minho the floor for final remarks before the vote. Minho stood at the center of the chamber. He thought about his grandparents who had survived Earth's last world war, about the lessons humanity learned from centuries of conflict, about the choice every civilization faced. "I'm not going to threaten you," he began. "I'm not going to remind you of Earth's weapons or our military strength. You all know what we can do. That's not what this vote is about." He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes with various representatives. "This is about what we choose to build. My species spent thousands of years fighting ourselves. Wars over land, resources, ideas, religions. We killed billions of our own kind before we finally understood a simple truth. Survival means cooperation. Fighting is easy. Building is hard. But only one of those creates a future worth living in." He gestured to the proposed charter displayed on screens throughout the chamber. "This charter isn't perfect. It won't solve every problem, but it's better than what we have now. It says that all species deserve protection, not just the strong ones. It says that decisions should be transparent and fair. It says that we're all in this together." Minho paused, his voice becoming more intense. "The galaxy is dangerous. We all know that. There are threats out there beyond anything we've faced. Commander Daeon's people have detected signals from dead civilizations. Warnings about something that destroyed species that were more advanced than any of us. Whatever that threat is, we'll face it eventually. When that day comes, do you want us divided? Fighting each other? Or do you want us standing together?" He looked at Vexman directly. "You can vote to keep the old ways, to maintain the hierarchy that kept some species powerful and others weak. That's your right. But ask yourself, has that system made the galaxy safer? Better? Or has it just maintained the status quo while everyone lives in fear? Minho walked back to Earth's section and sat down next to Giwan. She squeezed his hand briefly. Either this worked, or everything they had built would fall apart. The vote was called. Species voted one by one. The count was close. Too close. Every vote mattered. The Kelthorn voted yes. The Tyval voted yes. The Paresh voted yes. Earth's allies came through. But would it be enough? The Talviri, one of the Old Guard's strongest supporters, surprised everyone by voting yes. Their representative explained, "We have seen what Earth can do in war. Now we have seen what they can do in peace. We choose peace." More species followed. The momentum shifted. When the final count came in, the new charter passed by a margin of 58 to 40-2. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species celebrated. Others looked defeated. Vexman sat quietly, his expression unreadable. Finally, he stood. The vote is passed. The Galactic Council will reform under the new charter. May we not regret this decision. He looked at Minho. President Kang, as architect of these reforms, perhaps you should say a few words. Minho stood again, feeling the weight of the moment. Ambassador Guan stood with him, along with the representatives from dozens of allied species. The old council seal showed 12 founding species in a hierarchy, Minho said. The new seal will show all member species in a circle. No one above, no one below, just partners building a better galaxy together. He raised his hand in a gesture of unity that had been adopted by the reform bloc. We came to the stars as victims. We rose as warriors. We will endure as builders. That is humanity's promise to the galaxy. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will share what we have. We will face threats together. And we will never, ever abandon our friends. The chamber filled with sounds of approval from dozens of species. The new order was born. 50 years later, President Minho Kong lived in retirement on a colony world. He taught history to young humans and aliens alike. Telling them about the year everything changed, Admiral Sora commanded Earth's defense fleet. Protecting dozens of species under the Mutual Defense Pact, Dr. Yunji's technologies had revolutionized galactic civilization. Ambassador Ji Wan had become Secretary General of the Reformed Council. But the warnings Commander Dayon discovered had grown stronger. Ancient signals pulsing from the dark between stars, mathematical patterns that suggested intelligence, and predictions of something coming. Something that had ended advanced civilizations repeatedly throughout galactic history. The Unified Council, strengthened by Earth's reforms, prepared to face this threat together. They had fleets from 100 species, technologies shared freely among all members, protocols for cooperation that had been tested in numerous smaller crises on Earth. In the memorial for the 30,000 who died in the Vrenthi attack, a new inscription was added. They died so that humanity would remember. Strength without wisdom is cruelty, but wisdom without strength is weakness. Be both strong and wise, and never forget the cost of peace. Minho stood before this memorial with his daughter Somin, now a senior diplomat. She had grown up in the new galaxy that Earth helped create. Was it worth it? She asked him, echoing his own question from years ago. Minho thought about everything that happened. The attack, the counterattack, the reforms, the friends made from former enemies, the civilization they had built together.